and welcome to the RevTech Labs vlog. My name is Ashley Everett. I am the events producer and marketing manager at RevTech Labs. This week, I am switching things up a little bit. Instead of introducing you to one of our founders that have taken part in our cohort or in our alumni network, I'm hosting a new session that we're going to call For Your Innovation, where I sit down with industry leaders and experts to discuss various business topics, which is a major cornerstone of our Accelerator and Scalerator program. It's around education and giving entrepreneurs and startup founders the knowledge and insight they need to not only succeed and grow, but scale and thrive. So today I am sitting down with David Muhammed, co-founder and CXO of Fulton Mecklenburg, a design thinking digital agency. Thank you for joining me today, David.
Hey, Ashley, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you guys.
Of course. So I'm just going to dive right in. Can you tell me a little bit about tell me about your firm and what exactly is a design thinking digital agency?
Sure. So design thinking is a principle where it's a human-centered approach to marketing, product design and development, where the needs of the user and the customer are front and center. And so it's not necessary, it's technology agnostic and it's not as navel gazy as brand-centric approaches have been, say, in the late 20th century. So when we say a design thinking digital agency, that means the user is front and center of everything that we're thinking about. And so we focus on experience design, digital and social strategy, and content strategy and production.
Wow, that's great. And I know a real big piece of that human-centered approach is storytelling, and that's something that you guys do really well at your firm. Can you tell me a little bit about why storytelling is so important?
Sure. So storytelling is a cornerstone of the human experience. It's through stories. That's how we really kind of construct our world, through stories. It's also been scientifically proven that stories can stimulate very important neurochemicals, dopamine and oxytocin. So dopamine gets you to act. It's the pre-adrenaline release. And then oxytocin is the neurochemical that makes you feel emotional connections. So stories really kind of get that going. You're listening to a song, that musical artist is pulling you into what they're trying to express, and you feel that feeling, whether it's sadness or elation or you want to go dance, whatever they're really trying to express through that musical story really connects with you through the release of those neurochemicals. So storytelling is really important, and it gets to the root of really what you're trying to get across, and it's the way we learn as humans, through storytelling.
I love that. And I love the science behind it.
Yeah.
So let's talk strategy. So how do you take those creative storytelling skills and make it effective at achieving kind of your goals and marketing metrics?
So with brand storytelling, the user is always the hero. The customer is the hero. Right. The brand's not the hero. And so the main character in brand storytelling is not you, it's your customer. And that's, again, that human-centered approach. And the idea is to have a narrative, a beginning, a middle, and an ending. And so that's the strategy of storytelling from a 30,000-foot perspective. And then some of the elements of good brand storytelling include, as I talked about, your characters, setting, conflict, action, climax, and then solutions. If you think about videos, music videos, you have 3 minutes. Artists have 3 minutes or less to kind of get in and tell that story, to get you to stream or download, buy some merch, go to a show post-COVID. And in commercials, 60 seconds, sometimes 30. Online, sometimes, between 3 and 5 seconds, to really kind of get all of those elements in place to get you to act and emotionally connect. The foundation of good brand storytelling is to really find your tone and your voice. And so if you think about if you're in a relationship and your partner, your mate, your spouse you're in the mall, you're somewhere, and you hear their voice. You know their voice outside of everyone else's voice. So voices describes your personality as a brand, and it's consistent and unchanging. We know our people's voices. Tone, on the other hand, is the emotional inflection applied to your voice. So if you have kids or you're in a relationship, and like I know when my wife, who has a soft voice, but if I've done something wrong or hadn't gotten something done, I can tell by the tone in her voice what she's expecting or what I fell short on. And so the key for brands is to establish their voice. What is their consistent personality? And then what tone do they want to inflect on that voice as they go to market? Is it a playful tone? Is it a serious tone? Is it a mixture of the two? And so I suggest a lot of brands that you really want to be, your tone should be more sitcom than drama. So you want to be a little more, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I love the King of Queens from the late 90s, early 2000s, and Malcolm in the Middle and the Bernie Mac show. Everybody Hates Chris. Those are great shows. So you kind of want to have that voice a little bit, as opposed to, say, The West Wing or The Godfather of Harlem. Those voices, you know, you never know how someone's going to take the seriousness of your tone. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the approach. And then, of course, you want to figure out what your brand purpose is as a brand. Not what the product is, but what does the brand stand for? What is a defining purpose that sets you apart from your competitors? Of course, there's a functional purpose. You want to make money, for instance. But then there's the intentional purpose to do good in the world. Like, say, for instance, Always, which is a feminine products brand. Yeah, they sell feminine products, but their brand purpose and their brand voice is about boosting girls' self-esteem. And if you look at some of their marketing as they go to market, you'll see women playing hockey and women being firefighters and all kind of things that really kind of that embody this esteemed, heroic approach. Then, of course, Dove, they went to market with the position of challenging society's definition of beauty. So yeah, their functional purpose is to sell soap, but their intentional purpose is to get folks, men and women, they're mostly targeted at women, but men and women, to really kind of define their own sense of beauty, right? And to not necessarily be taken in by stereotypical marketing and media standards of beauty, which we all suffer if we go against that sort of perfect image that folks apply in the media of what's a standard of beauty. We're all going to fall short there. And so Dove's purpose was to get folks to accept themselves. So they want to sell soap, but their tone, their voice, and their purpose in telling their story was about challenging society's definitions of beauty. So those are some good examples of brand storytelling, voice and tone, and also brand purpose.
Oh, that's great. So one of my questions too is, we work with a lot of B2B startups, and I know that sometimes having them kind of work through what their brand tone, what their brand voice, their personality is, it seems to be harder in that B2B space because it's a little less sexy, right? Than some of these B2C companies. Do you have any exercises or any tips and recommendations that you use when working with B2Bs to really help develop that personality?
That's a great point. Couple things. One, there's a ton of research, writing, blogs, podcasts out there about the consumerization of B2B. Okay. So today's B2B isn't the same as yesterday's B2B. One. Today's B2B is a little more elastic. It's not as stoic as yesterday's B2B. That's one. So you do have some creative license there. Two, the people that you're selling to are still human. So it goes back to this human-centered approach. Yeah. You still have to get them to release dopamine to act on something. And you still have to create an emotional connection. Now, the emotional connections within a B2B universe might manifest themselves differently, but maybe not. Watch this example. So, in a B2B environment, you're trying to generate credibility and relevance with some sort of corporate purchasing, procurement officer, or whatever the case may be. But then again, what is the feeling of credibility? That's kind of like trust, isn't it? So that's an emotion. There's my point again. And so I think a lot of B2B guys, they're not necessarily seeing the human-centered opportunity there, that you still have to create a voice, a tone, and have a purpose. And so your functional purpose within B2B is to sell widgets, whatever they may be, get downloads for your app, or have folks use your your machine learning algorithm for Bitcoin, whatever the case may be, or blockchain, whatever the case may be. But you still have to communicate in a way that's going to get folks to act, a release of dopamine, and have folks connect with your brand emotionally, a release of oxytocin. And so the emotional release still has to occur, and it's still done through storytelling. Now, the story is going to be framed in a setting. Remember, we talked about the elements, setting. Yeah. So B2B is a different setting than B2C, but still all of the same elements, the narrative elements are still occurring. And so it really comes down to knowing your audience, one. All of this is requisite upon market research. User research. So this is all, I should have touched on that first. So you have to have done all that homework first. Knowing your audience, knowing what the segments are, not only the demographics, but the psychographics, and create some personas and figure out what those journeys are around each one of those personas within your various audience segments. So all that has to be done up front. So once you figure out who your primary, secondary, and tertiary persona segmentations are, then it's easier to then again go in and apply your tone, your voice, your functional and intentional purpose through the system of storytelling. So essentially what I took 3 minutes to say is it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's the setting that's different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about, I'm a big Star Wars guy, not the prequels and not the new stuff, just really the, Star Wars, New Hope, Empire, and Return, just those big three. So, but if you think about that setting, it's set in a future time in a galaxy far, far away. So that's the setting there. Mm-hmm. But I also watch a lot of rom-coms with my wife. And so let's think about Notting Hill, for instance. It's a classic. We watched that about 10 million times. So in Notting Hill, boy meets girl. It's set in London in contemporary society. Boy meets girl. Girl and boy get together. Boy loses girl. Girl and boy get back together. Big finish. Lots of oxytocin. Oh, it was a great feeling. Yep. Same thing happens in Star Wars with Han Solo and Princess Leia. Boy meets girl. Boy connects with girl. Boy loses girl. He reconnects with girl. They profess their love and they live happily ever after. Same story. Different settings. One is sci-fi, one is rom-com. Same elements, my point. And so I think in the 21st century, certainly with startups have the opportunity to be as nimble and as elastic as they want to be with their tone, voice, functional purpose, intentional purpose, and how they go about telling their stories, and then what those content units are. Are they memes? Are they GIFs? Are they motion graphics? Are they long form videos? Are they white papers? Are they all of that? Are they category specific non-branded keywords that lead to a landing page for lead generation? Mm-hmm. So all those are elements of all of the touch points within your ecosystem where your brand, where folks experience your brand, but then you have to have this through line of storytelling, this transmedia storytelling piece that connects all those through lines throughout those touch points. So B2B, B2C is not so different, mm-hmm. is my point. Not so different. With each one of them, you're going to have to figure out who your audiences are, what those segments are, and then what are the personas that are going to drive those journeys. And then you just start telling your stories.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I never realized.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. And I never realized that Star Wars and Notting Hill were the same movie.
Same
just
story.
In different settings.
Same story.
It will definitely make me watch Star Wars a little bit better.
Yeah, it's both of them are epic love stories. Just to be, to cut it all the way down, love stories.
Yeah, no, that's great. And really helpful for a lot of the companies that we work with. But while we're talking about the B word, let's talk about everyone's favorite B word. And by that, I mean budget. A lot of companies, especially, startups that are really starting to get up and off the ground, have very small and even sometimes non-existent budget.
Yes. Totally understand.
So how do you kind of help your clients get really creative and scrappy with their marketing dollars?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was just going to say scrappy. So scrappy is the key, not only with startups, but I think with large conglomerates as well. That is a behavior that everyone should bring to bear. How do I get the most bang for my buck? Or how do I take crumbs and bake a cake, as Jay-Z has said so eloquently before? So again, it starts with, who are your audiences? These are the fundamentals, Ashley, every time. What is your audience? How do we create personas? And then what are those journeys around those personas? Once we figure that out, we find out what's important to the audience. So if the audience that you're targeting wants more simple content, for instance, GIFs, memes, infographics, then you leverage your budget that way. If they're into more longer form content, white papers, 5 to 7 minute explainer videos, then you leverage your content that way. And then you create a content point of view where there are different types of contents that perform different ways, like superhero content, big stuff that you do once a year, high production value that really drives brand awareness. Scheduled content that is quasi-episodic, that has folks coming back into your ecosystem on a cadence. And then scheduled content, most of that's performance stuff, keyword stuff. So if you got $100 or if you got, $1 million, the idea is to leverage that money across your audience, that is audiences that are persona driven throughout those journeys, the way that they want content, which kind of goes back to this human-centered approach. And so if you feed folks what they want, your marketing dollars are just going to go further, as opposed to the old way of marketing. This is what our brand stands for. These are the channels that we use, and therefore our audiences will come to us if we build it. Yeah, not so much, bro. Not in the 21st century, bro. It don't work like that. And so small guys, medium-sized guys, big guys, everybody's got to be scrappy today because you've got so much clutter to cut through. I mean, you're fighting against texts, cat memes, games, Fitbit apps. I mean, there's just so much media that both B2B, and you got to remember, people that are in a B2B environment, they're checking their Fitbit every few seconds to make sure to get their steps in. They're getting texts during the day from the wife or the hubby or the partner. They're checking in on the kids. They're figuring out what they're going to do for the weekend while they're still in that work environment, right? So people's lives aren't siloed anymore. And we can really thank millennials for that, because millennials have really pushed, and I think it's good. Millennials have really kind of driven this blended digital media consumption behavior. And then you have a lot of folks who are millennials, like I'm a Gen Xer, but I identify with millennial digital media consumption behavior. And so I've adopted that millennial digital media consumption behavior sort of template. And a lot of folks are like that, but millennials and Gen Zers, they're really pushing that. And so organizations have to future-proof against that huge demographic of millennials and Gen Zers, which together are the largest and most diverse demographic in American history. And they just consume media differently. And that's why this human-centered approach is so important. Give folks what they want, when they want it, tell your stories to them in the way that they want to receive those stories. And you can't get any scrappier than that. I mean, that is extremely scrappy. But there is no one size fits all to, spend your dollars in display, and this amount of dollars in email, and this amount of dollars in social, right, this amount of dollars in gamification. And that's kind of that 20th century approach. Your customers are going to tell you where to spend your dollars. They're going to tell you how they want to receive content. And then all you have to do is do that. It's like, so if you're, I've been married a long time, but back in the day before I was married, I used to date. And so if I'm dating somebody and they like Italian food, but I take them to a Thai restaurant, there's probably going to be a disconnect there.
Yeah.
You know, and so when we're marketing, we're basically trying to date. That's pretty much it. We're trying to get folks to like us more than the next guy, and then get into a relationship with us with all of our strengths and weaknesses, but understanding that overall, we're probably the best fit. Were we a perfect fit? No, but it's the 80-20 rule, right? You're only going to get 80% of what you're looking for, more than likely 63%, but 80 is the top. You're never going to get 100.
Yeah.
And so it's that consumer-centric approach, Ashley, that really allows folks to be really scrappy.
Yeah. So
finding out what people like and giving it to them like they like it.
Yes. Yeah. No, and really great analogies too, again. But I don't want to give away all your goods and secrets in this one sitting. And I just personally want to say to everyone listening, you know, Fulton Mecklenburg has been a great partner and supporter of ours, and really know branding and storytelling and marketing so well, and we can't recommend them enough. So if you're interested in learning more, please check out the description below. I will put all their notes and information there. But thank you so much for joining me today, David, and sharing all your wisdom.
Oh, wow. You make me sound like Yoda. Thanks a lot, Ashley, for having us. And hit us up at fullmec.com, and you can find us on Twitter at fullmec, and on Instagram at fullmec as well. So hit us up.
Yes, thank you, David. And for everyone else, stay safe and stay healthy.